Hi everyone, this is Athena from Courage Coaching. Thank you for joining me today. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to survive the holidays if you have a narcissistic family. Now, although for most individuals, Christmas and New Year can be a very nice time of year where you share lots of happy memories with your family, with your children. For some people that do have difficult relationships with their family, this time of year can be very stressful and very overwhelming. And it's very important that when you do have toxic family members, when you are dealing with a narcissistic mother or narcissistic father, or maybe your siblings are narcissistic and very toxic and abusive, what do you do? How do you deal with this? The first option is obviously to not take part in the family gathering and stay away, right? So some of you may already be on no contact with that dysfunctional family member, and you may have chosen to spend time at Christmas with just your closest friends or with your partner. But if you can't get out of spending Christmas with your family, or you still feel a sense of obligation to go and spend the holidays with the family members that you find hard, then I have a couple of tips that will help you get through this time, and to remind you that if at any point it gets unbearable, you can always choose to leave. You don't have to put yourself through the torture of being somewhere if your family member is being overly abusive or insulting. So let's first of all talk about your expectations when you are going to spend time with a family member that's toxic. The most important thing when you have expectations at this time of year is that you have to adjust your expectations and not expect the toxic or narcissistic individual to do something that they can't, or to be somebody that they are not. Because a narcissist or a toxic individual, unfortunately, doesn't have the capacity to empathize. They don't have the capacity to hear you out. They don't have the ability to truly listen, to truly have a reciprocal relationship. So it may be that that person is the center of attention in this family gathering. So as long as you adjust your expectations and you remind yourself that this interaction isn't going to be a balanced one, a healthy one, then at least you know not to have an expectation or something that you will be upset about because you will feel let down. And you have to remember that no matter how much you try or how much you want it, the narcissist in your life or in your family is not going to change, is not going to listen to you, or is going to be able to meet your needs. Having realistic expectations when you are dealing with narcissistic family members is the only way to be, because this way it will ease any feelings of disappointment you may have, or frustration or hurt. The second thing you must do is to look after yourself first. So remember, you can only manage yourself. You can only control yourself, not the toxic or narcissistic individual. So you can generally navigate a difficult situation by having very clear and very consistent boundaries. And you can decide ahead, what is acceptable to you? What behaviors will you not tolerate? And then you need to remember to stick to your boundaries if the toxic person in your family does something that goes against them. So make sure you prepare yourself before you go there. What you will tolerate, what you won't tolerate, what you're going to do for yourself if you feel uncomfortable. It may be that you take some time out. It may be that you go for a walk. It may be that you decide that you will leave the family gathering, even if it's Christmas Day. It doesn't matter. Your well-being always comes first. Another thing that you can do that helps you feel a bit more balanced is to make sure that you do not engage in any drama. So if you notice that your toxic or narcissistic family member is trying to manipulate you, is trying to gaslight you, is trying to guilt trip you, or any other form of manipulation, you have the right to set a boundary and disengage and look after yourself. You have to be very mindful of how you respond. So try to remember that you don't need to justify your feelings. You don't need to justify why you don't agree with a certain behavior or why you don't like a certain behavior. You have every right to disengage, to set a boundary, and if they continue to cross that boundary, then you can leave. You don't have to sit there and put up with it. Another very good thing that you can do when you know you're going to be around a difficult family member or a narcissist is to have some rehearsed statements that you can say when you are there and you are feeling uncomfortable. I'm going to go through about 5 statements that you could rehearse before you attend a meeting with a narcissistic family member that may help you in moments where you are noticing that they are trying to manipulate you, that they are trying to cross your boundaries, or that they are trying to gaslight you. So some of these could be the following. Number 1, I'd really like to change the topic. Number 2, I prefer not to talk about this right now. Number 3, oh look, Cousin Mary just arrived. Let me nip over there and talk to her. Just excuse me, I really need to go to the toilet is a good one. So anything at all that will get you out of a tricky situation is something that you should do in order to protect yourself when you feel that things are getting out of hand. So just come up with excuses. It doesn't matter what the excuse is, but if you feel that you're starting to get overwhelmed or you're starting to feel disrespected, then just find something to say that will get you out of that tricky situation. Now, another good tip is to try and resist being defensive. When you're around a narcissistic parent or family member, it is very hard to not get defensive. And it is the most natural thing to do is to get defensive when someone insults us or when someone says something that crosses a boundary. But try not to do this because the more defensive you get, the more they enjoy it. Don't forget, narcissistic people thrive on drama and they thrive on people's reactions. So if you try not to react and you keep your cool, the better it will be. If you were to get defensive, for instance, or show them that you're upset, this makes you more vulnerable to then have further abuse, or for them to further say things that are insulting, or for them to say things that further invalidate you, that further damage your self-esteem. Try and keep a cool head as much as is possible, and try not to put your self-esteem and your emotions on the line for further abuse. Another thing that's very useful is before you go to any family gathering, and this doesn't have to be the holidays only, this can be at any point, just try and practice how you're going to say things ahead of time. You know, you may do this when you're talking in the mirror. You may do this with your partner. Your partner could pretend he's your narcissistic father, and you could practice the things that you would say to him if he started becoming insulting or was relentless in the abuse that he was throwing at you, right? So practicing before you go to a family gathering is very, very useful. The reality is that you can't possibly anticipate exactly what's going to go wrong, but you can sort of think through in advance likely points of vulnerability or likely things that they might say from previous experience and rehearse them until you manage to get your point across. There is a method called the broken record method, which is something that we learn in assertiveness training. And in this method, it basically says that if you keep repeating the same statement over and over again, then the other person will eventually get the message and will back down. So it could be something as simple as, I really don't want to talk about this right now. I would rather change the subject. And the toxic person may continue to ask you, oh yes, but I'd really like to find out about why you broke up with your partner. Well, I've already said I really don't want to talk about this today, so could we please talk about something else? And if they continue to go on about it, you repeat the same thing again. Lastly, if you are going to visit family and you're on your own, it could be that you're feeling really nervous about it, right? And it might be that you don't have a partner, so you don't have somebody to turn to for support if things start getting too much. So maybe ask one of your friends if he or she could be your support on the day. So if you really needed to call them when things get really overwhelming, that you can. Sometimes having a voice of reason or somebody supportive near us or around us or at the end of the phone can be extremely helpful in helping us manage our own emotional reactions, our own upsetting feelings. Because remember, you are going into essentially what feels a bit like an emotional war zone. So when you are in an environment that's toxic, you need to have support. So if you don't have a partner with you, then please try and enlist a friend that you can talk to in order to feel a bit more stable. Just make sure you've got that extra bit of support because it does go a long way. Now, if you are somebody who is heading off to celebrate Christmas with a narcissistic family member, I wish you the best of luck. I know it's not easy. You're very brave to be doing so, but also remind yourself, this is only a day or a couple of hours. You can get through it. And if they're horrible, you can always walk out. You don't have to stay there and put yourself through any more emotional distress. If you would like to share your experience in the comments below the video, then please do so. So that's the end of the video today. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Take care, everybody, and I hope you do have a very happy Christmas. Bye-bye.